This is Ron Klopfanstein, and you're in the hot seat on a Media Monday. Hey everyone, I'm Ron Klopfanstein, and you're in the hot seat on this Media Monday. We want to welcome everyone who is streaming with us today on Twitch, Facebook Live, as well as our streaming audience on 95.5 FM The Heat, and on the TuneIn app, and those of you who are listening to us right now on the broadcast at 95.5 FM. Tonight we'll be talking to Brendan Maslauskas Dunn. He's an international journalist who's just back from Egypt and has a story coming out tomorrow or the next day in Unicorn Riot News. We'll also hear from our friend Lorraine Kreimeyer, who's excited about the Munson Sidewalk Art Show, and Lily Christopher has found some surprisingly trendy offerings at the Hartford Farmers Market. I also have a report on the peace rally that was held yesterday by SNUG on the corner of James and Howard Street. But first, the one big beautiful bill, which includes tax cuts and spending provisions, was passed by Republicans in Congress and signed into law by President Trump on Thursday. To provide our listeners with an informed perspective, I spoke to a doctor, a nurse practitioner, a maternity ward employee, and a Medicaid recipient about how this bill is likely to impact healthcare right here in the Mohawk Valley. Here's that report. I'm Ron Klopfanstein in Utica, where people have gathered to protest what Trump calls the big, beautiful bill. It was passed earlier today by Republicans in the House of Representatives. Lena, who works in maternity, and so you have obviously some concerns about these cuts to Medicaid, I imagine?
I do, because one of the first programs to be cut from hospitals in rural areas like here is maternity. So anything that's extra or they believe that doesn't need funding, and we're already a very underfunded program, it's one of the first things to go. And if we don't have anyone to deliver babies, it's going to be a really hard struggle for our moms and anyone who wants to have children.
So where would the hospitals locally, where would they lose these services? Would local hospitals? Or?
Local hospitals would. Rome would eventually lose it. They would
so
probably be one of the first. Probably one of the first to be affected would be Rome Hospital. Wynn might follow after. They
so
really
when
haven't
people talk about rural hospitals, they not only could mean local they not only mean local hospitals, but like Rome Hospital, like right here.
Yeah, it would be very local.
Area, so.
It's a very small hospital, and we rely mostly on funding from the community. And if we lose that, we lose maternity.
So
we might also lose elective surgeries.
What would that be like for people that live around here?
It would affect people in a devastating way, because we deliver between 600 and 700 babies a year, and that's how many people would be immediately affected, especially people that come back to have children in succession. Most of our moms aren't first-time moms. They're on 4 or 5. And it's a very poor area, so they rely on it because they also have access to Medicaid programs that have MVP insurance. They don't always have private.
Where would they go?
There's not an outlet for it. There's not a better outlet. They would have to commute very far. Most of them don't have the resources to do that, and sometimes we have very low literacy levels, and they need rides to the hospital even from local areas as close as Minnesota.
So women locally, if they go to Rome Hospital now for maternity, may not be able to get maternity services at all. They won't be able to access it.
They might not, and I don't know that Wynn would keep them if Rome lost them. And the closest will be Crouse, because they have the most funding, and they actually do have a NICU. Rome can even help babies that are born prematurely.
So when if someone is on Medicaid, likely they have transportation issues too, so getting the Syracuse would be put in.
There's very limited access to Medicaid transportation, especially if people are young and have access to their families. You have to petition it, and you have to ask Medicaid and Medicare for that access, and they restrict it without a very good reason. And just not having a car is not a good enough reason.
What is the potential danger of women going back to having to have their children at home or on their own without health care?
We have a lot of high-risk pregnancies in the area. We have, first of all, a high incidence of obesity and diabetes, and that creates incredible complications for our moms. Without access to really good, healthy food, parents are choosing the cheapest thing they can, which is not necessarily healthy, which contributes to obesity. And that is one of the biggest factors we have with moms in high-risk situations that rely on these hospitals for care and for transfer.
So someone who's not getting their maternity services, health care, they're also not going to get their health care for all the other.
No, especially not if they have chronic illness.
In Oneida, Herkimer, and Madison counties, 105,000 people rely on Medicaid. This is nearly 1 in 4 residents. That means that cuts to Medicaid not only threaten to strip a quarter of Mohawk Valley residents of their access to health care, it means that our hospitals and health clinics are about to lose a significant portion of their funding.
I'm with Ed and Candace. Ed is a doctor, Candace is a nurse practitioner and a nurse midwife. I'm wondering, how do you think local people will be affected by the cuts to Medicaid?
Well, our big concern is the community health centers, and there's a community health center in Utica,
Upstate Family Health Center.
How will that be affected, do you think?
Well, anybody who loses their Medicaid would still need to have health care. So they would show up at their primary care person at the health center, and there'd be no payment. They'd have to pay themselves, which would be a much reduced amount. And so the local community health center could lose a significant amount of their revenue. And in some rural areas, that is so much that they could have to close. Now, I'm not sure what the financial situation is here in Utica, but depending on how fine a margin they have, even a small amount of decrease could be devastating to them.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people in this community who have Medicaid, and if they lose that, then, as Ed just said, then they either have to pay themselves or they put off getting health care. And my concern about that is that when people don't get regular primary care services, it becomes more expensive because they wait. They wait until things are really bad, and then they show up in the emergency room and they need much higher level care, which is more expensive. Right?
And what would be the cumulative impact on the industry if everybody waits until things are at an emergency state and such a large segment of the population is getting their primary health care from ERs?
Yeah.
What impact will they have on
Well, what happens is, let's say, for example, you have hypertension, high blood pressure, or diabetes, and you stop taking your medicine. You're not under control. Then you end up having a stroke, you end up having a heart attack, you end up having amputations. Much higher cost and much more devastating for that individual. They can no longer work, they're not productive for their family, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a huge ripple effect.
Well, do you have personal concerns about the cuts to Medicaid too?
I do. I have chronic illness. I have systemic lupus. I've had it all my life. I struggle with energy levels, with fatigue, and with rash. And getting to work is a challenge for me, and getting the right kinds of medication is a challenge because there are not alternatives to biologics for someone like me who's trialed on other medications and failed. So if I don't get enlisted, I could go into liver failure and die because my medication controls my liver failure.
I think that probably a lot of people are going to hear this and be surprised that somebody who has a job is on Medicaid.
Yeah, I don't make a living wage. So I'm not afraid to say that on camera, that I work at Rome Health and don't get a living wage.
And a lot of people who work full time and work multiple jobs don't make a living wage and can't afford health care.
No, and most of the people in my hospital have to look for alternative services or apply for intermediary programs like I do, where you're in a category where it's not totally free and there's a partial payment plan. But for my medications, I can't afford the partial. I can't even afford the infusions if I do a partial. So I'm on the fully funded program because of my illness.
What do you think your life would be like without Medicaid and without the health care that you're getting now?
So when I moved to New York, I didn't have any health insurance and I was almost completely disabled. I couldn't get out of bed. And when I started getting on the medication, I started having control of the symptoms for my autoimmune disorder. And then I was able to get up and get a job. And I am educated. I have 2 degrees, but it's not helping.
So because you're on Medicaid, you get the health care and you're able to work.
Yes.
I let go because I was told by my doctor, no more, don't teach ceramic art anymore, you're killing yourself. So I got $380 a month. My rent was $325. I had to go for work at the county in Bath, New York. I was in Steuben. There's a room full of people. They had one job, a part-time at a Bill Evans or whatever, that food restaurant.
yeah.
How can you pay for gas to go 20 miles to work part-time and still have money for your rent working part-time? It's this working that they're going to replace to get your Medicaid, to get your benefits. These people, no, their doctors tell them don't work. You are not able to work full-time job or part-time. So they're not taking advantage. There's
Yeah.
no taking advantage. There might be 1/1,000,000%. But they check us every month.
And let's just back up a little bit. We're one of the few countries in the world that doesn't have universal health care. Right? So we're already at a huge deficit in this country. We're way behind in primary care and specialty care. So we're taking a bad system and making it worse. We're going backwards.
The people here at the rally all noted that this will have a devastating impact on healthcare, whether you're a Medicaid recipient or not. In Utica, I'm Ron Klopfanstein from 95.5 FM, The Heat.
Opponents of the bill say that the Republican plan to divert $350 billion from health care and social programs in order to expand ICE and build more detention centers will have a devastating impact on the quality and types of health care that will be available to us here in the Mohawk Valley. Brendan Maslauskas Dunn is a professor of history who teaches in Cambodia and is a freelance investigative journalist. His work as a journalist has brought him to Palestine over the past 2 years, where he spent most of his time in a refugee camp in Bethlehem. Last month, he went to Egypt to accompany the global march to Gaza, an action that involved thousands of actors from all over the world who attempted to break the siege of Gaza. His work was published in the Unicorn Riot News, and he has more stories on Palestine and Egypt coming up over the summertime. Brendan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So what have you been doing over in Egypt, and what's going on in the Middle East?
So much. So I went to Egypt last month in June, and as you mentioned, there's this planned action that brought, by my count, about 6,000 people from all over the world, activists, humanitarians, just different people that wanted to do something, anything to break the siege in Gaza, to demand an end to the genocide, to demand the immediate mass transfer of food, medical aid, and other humanitarian aid into Gaza. Just to put an end to this. I mean, this has been going on for, this genocide has been going on for a year and almost 10 months.
How did it start? So what is going on in Gaza?
I really have to bring
We
it
were on
back.
the show a year ago talking about it, and
Yeah.
In that time, things have intensified.
Sure. I mean,
Certainly.
I'll say, how it started, it's really difficult to cover that. I would bring it back. I know people talk about October 7th and the attacks from Hamas in southern Israel. You really can't start with that. You have to go back 75 years. And I will say briefly what's been going on for the last 75 years is an apartheid system that's, legalized, system of discrimination and segregation of people, and putting the indigenous people to that area into open air prisons, into
Kind of like a ghetto, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's precisely what Gaza is. It's the world's largest ghetto. I see what's going on now in Gaza is very similar to what tragically happened to Jews that were living in ghettos in Central Europe leading up to World War II. So I think there's a lot of very tragic and unfortunate parallels there. And basically, most of the people that are getting killed are civilians. The vast overwhelming majority of people, they're killing fields essentially that are being set up, even with this sham of a food distribution program that an American company is involved in Rafah, in the southern part of Gaza, is absolute nightmare, is madness. And by some estimates, just last month, there are over 500 Palestinian civilians that were killed by American mercenaries. There are American soldiers, not with the army, but American mercenaries that are in Gaza right now who are participants in this genocide.
So what are the challenges of covering that? You're an American and you went to Gaza as a journalist. when you're on the ground, how do you get your bearings and how do you know what to do?
Well, I couldn't. That's the thing. I tried to get to Gaza, and I couldn't. Right, and it's too dangerous for me there. There's more than enough journalists there right now, and Palestinian journalists that are documenting this crisis.
So you
They're
went to
documenting.
Egypt?
Yeah, I went to Egypt, and the plan was.
What is that like? I mean, just to be, to cover a story in a different country, especially where it's like a global hotspot.
Right. I mean, I'm not going in any official capacity. I'm not going in as perhaps some other journalists working for mainstream publications. They inform the Egyptian state and going through immigration that they're there for work. They're there working as a journalist. I don't do that when I go to Egypt or even where I live in Cambodia or when I went to Palestine and Israel. The stakes are too high. That puts a target on my back, right? And we see that with how many journalists and media workers have been killed, and a number of them, I would say, assassinated, intentionally targeted by the Israeli army.
Well, I think a lot of us American journalists too are starting to feel like we have targets on our back as well. So we'll talk more about this after the break. We're going to talk more with Brendan Maslauskas Dunn. We're also going to talk to artist Lorraine Kreimeyer. She'll join us by phone to talk about the Monthly Sidewalk Art Show. Lily Christopher has a story on the Farmers Market, and I'll have the report on the SNUG Peace Rally that was held in Utica yesterday. We'll have the show available on YouTube and podcast on Wednesday at uticaphoenix.net/Media Monday. I'm Ron Klopfanstein. You're in the hot seat on a Media Monday. We'll have more after the break.
At First Source, we believe in building a better community together.
So in
When
the
you
second
become a
segment,
member, you're not just joining a
do a
group,
segment,
you're becoming a
phone
member
call,
for
then we'll go
good.
to commercial, and then third segment will be a segment, and all of us talk.
Sounds good. Now do the interview in the third segment.
Yes.
At First Source, we're
I think it goes on the it goes on
together.
What company are you a journalist with?
Together.
Well, so I'm freelance, but I, very part-time, but I mostly write for a news organization called Unicorn Riot.
Oh,
So it's written down in
I've heard of that before.
Yeah.
Hey, John, I'm just going to put you on hold.
So some of my work is already there from Ron and already
But you'll hear me, and just stay at home and be ready to talk. First I'm going to ask you is, I'm going to ask you, so what piece did you create?
Yes. $50 off instant supplements.
Wait,
All
right, hold on tight.
24/7, 365 days a year.
My Fitness Mill commercial is airing right now. Hey, the Fitness Mill. My commercial. I actually go to Fitness Mill. I endorse it 100%. 12 hours a week.
Did you see my mom there? She
Yeah?
was there a little bit. Yeah.
I like the Fitness Mill. They're my first client, is an average high schooler. So I'm like super pumped.
Did you go in the old mill when they were still there?
I did. I didn't go to Fitness Mill. It's just it was actually the Fitness Mill back in New York Mill. Yeah, I followed over to Broad Street and we got a nice new facility and I'm making their commercials and it's going good. So when we come back, I'm going to do a little preview of this part.
Covered by Medicaid, Child Health Plus, or the Essential Plan, or being aged, blind, or disabled. We have an important reminder for you. The auto enrollment for coverage ended last year, so you now need to renew every year. Be on the lookout for the New York State of Health notification. Coverage continues without
Oh, they would have?
certified request. Don't worry, you're not alone in this. The Neighborhood Center is here to offer you further recertification assistance.
It's always fun to hear my I work so hard. I rehearsed it.
Oh yes, Jim. I just remember there was things about it Friday. I'm pretty much free. What time does it work for you on Friday?
2 days. Joe Pinnance. Joe Pinnance.
All these different
Commercial had to be perfect.
I was trying to figure out
I'm pretty much. You can get back to me if you want. If you're not
look,
100%.
I was actually going to get it, but I
think we're coming back.
release my stuff. So I'll figure it out. And there's on the site, you can pick a site. There's 8 sites.
There's different sites. There's different times, and I know there's one in Utica. There was one kind of out of the way in Utica, where there were 2 in Utica.
Okay. Yeah, let me figure out a time.
Do we have anybody on Facebook Live?
We had 3. We have 1 now. And it's on during the commercials too. It's just straight through. That's being recorded straight through for 1 hour also.
Watch it after it's done. Because it like saves it. It's on the thing I did yesterday. The rally. Like thousands. What are those clips that 20,000? I just did Facebook Live. Save it.
Unicorn shared your post, and they got like 2,000 views within less than an hour.
New York, listen up. Currently, 6.7 million of us have affordable health insurance through New York State Health. However, new federal policies could put up to 1.5 million New Yorkers at risk of losing that coverage. That's too many families, workers, and small business owners left in the dark. We don't know exactly what's coming, but your story matters. Stay connected. We'll keep you informed with real facts at nystateofhealth.ny.gov because 1.5 million without coverage is 1.5 million too many. Paid for by New York State Health.
Hey man down the street, aren't you Woodstock Rob?
Excuse me?
Aren't you Woodstock Rob?
Yep. So people call me that, yes.
What radio station do you listen to?
95.5.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
95.5, Phoenix Radio.
What? I can't hear you.
95.5, Phoenix Radio.
Great.
This is Ron Klopfanstein, and you're in the hot seat on Media Monday. Hey everyone, welcome back to the hot seat on this Media Monday. Today we're talking to journalist Brendan Maslauskas Dunn. Artist Lorraine Kreimeyer joins us by phone in a moment. But first we're going to go to the corner of James and Howard Street where SNUG held a peace rally yesterday in response to this weekend's shooting. Photojournalist Jim Hill and I were on the scene. Here's our report. I'm Ron Klopfanstein in Utica, where SNUG is holding a rally in response to this weekend's shooting. I'm with Angel Martinez. She's a program manager for the SNUG program. What's happening here today?
Well, today we're doing a shooting response. Anytime there's a shooting in the community, we'll come out, do a shooting response. People will call it a rally, where we get the community involved, everybody come out and just stand together. As you know, there's no community without unity. Our goal is to try to fight against this gun violence together.
What does SNUG stand for?
SNUG stands for should not use guns.
Should not
so
use
it's
guns.
guns spelled backwards.
I'm with Janelle Williams. This event is in honor of your brother. What happened to your brother, Reese?
He got shot 4th of July. And then naked. Yep, just out here to watch the fireworks, and somebody was out here doing something stupid, and he ended up getting killed.
What was your brother like? Can you tell us about Reese?
Full of life. My brother always been life of the party. Good person. He worked all his life, worked a hard working man. He's so generous, and like I said, he was well known, well loved by a lot of people.
What do you want to say to the community about violence and gun violence and the reason that you're having this rally? What's the message you want to get out there?
They don't understand when they do stuff like this, what they damage family, and what we have to go through. It's like, it's a lot. We used to people dying from natural causes, but when you take someone's life, it's totally different. It's a lot, it's stressful. It's a lot, But I'm gonna miss my brother. He really was a good person, like I said. What are you gonna say, Mom?
Is there anything you'd like to? Let me give you a mic, Carol.
Say it.
Yeah.
Say it. Say it right there.
He was really nice, and I really liked him.
Thank you for saying that and sharing that. I'm really sorry for your loss. You want to say something about your uncle?
He was a nice uncle to me, and when I found out he was dead, I was crying.
Yeah, my name is Letitia Brown, and that was my cousin. Loved dearly. If y'all know something, I know who did it, who had something to do with it. Please come forward. Y'all took a good person from us. We're gonna never live this down. Like, he was everything to everybody. The kids loved him. He loved the kids. We just need to know who did this. We don't care why you did it. We just know you ain't gonna be able to sleep peaceful. We don't sleep peaceful. We've been up for days. We need to know what happened. We want to know why you want to do what you're doing. Just get your life together. We able to forget. We'll never forget, but we able to forgive. All we want to know is, why did you take the wrong man? Any man is worthless. Now your life is going to be gone too, but ours is pain. Yours is not. So if anybody know what happened to my cousin, please just talk about it. No one's mad at you. We just want to know. We need the closure.
The organizers and participants of today's rally gathered together to mourn, to raise awareness, but also to encourage the public to step forward if they know anything about what happened. In Utica, I'm Ron Klopfanstein for 95.5 FM, The Heat. 95.5 FM, The Heat is part of your community, and in fulfilling our purpose as community radio, we want to give people in our neighborhood a voice. We want to keep this conversation going on. Lorraine Kreimeyer joins us on the phone now. She'll be in the Munson Sidewalk Art Show. Lorraine, are you there? Hi, Lorraine. Let's see, I might need you to speak up a little bit. Let's try one more time. Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. So you've been working on some really special project that's kind of big. It was almost so big you were afraid it wasn't going to fit into the show, right?
Yeah.
So what's your work of art?
Okay. See, I think you need just more now around than any other time in my life of making any piece of art, because it brought me so much joy. The couple people that I gave them, let them peek at it while I was working on it, gasped with joy.
Awesome.
They told me that the idea that fairy tale realm is a relevant thing, so said C.S. Lewis, Narnia author, and I have questioned it for years. I've been to the show, I looked it up 17 times now. And I won 3 times, and those particular wins were in the fairy genre.
Wow.
And I always kind of poo-pooed it, but now I understand. This is what people want. They want fairy tales. We want to look and find some joy in the stories that life is presenting, I guess. And this piece brought me so much, 3 times it brought me to tears with so much joy. I mean, my work is my healing medicine.
So what is it like?
It's a 3-story tree stump.
Wow.
There's a lean-to, moss lean-to on the top. You can see it. I can't explain it.
So did you make this out of an actual tree stump?
Am I talking over you?
No, you go right ahead. No, you tell us about how you took this tree stump and made it into this fairy house.
It's crazy. It's been a process over a couple of years, actually.
Wow.
And then finishing it with everything's in scale now. The downstairs living room, or kitchen. There's a downstairs kitchen, dining room. Then the upstairs is the bedroom. And these are things that I've acquired too. I'm very eclectic in my work. And there's things that I'm like, why am I thinking this nutshell? Where's this piece of fur from? Somebody was saying, what is this? I said, oh, it's a piece of mink coat from my aunt.
So glamorous.
Very eclectic, and you look at it, and if you don't believe in fairies,
You will after that, right?
Push you over the edge and make you believe in fairies, in fantasy, and joy. If we ever needed it, it's now, Ron.
And Lorraine, why is something that's so important now? I mean, you were on the phone and you heard the story that I just had about the shooting, and the feature story before it's about the people losing their health care. Like, why is it so important that we celebrate art and joy at this point in our history?
For me, I was really sick while I was completing this piece, and I'll tell you, it shifted me. It got me out of my suffering. It healed me. It healed my mind, because it's in our mind where our fear, for me anyway, fear or love, those are my 2 choices. What am I going to focus on? And it's minute by minute, because the fear will come up. And if I lean into what brings me joy, for me, it's creating, and this whole show, I mean, this is a show that is bringing our community together. It brings families out to support their kids, their families that are participating. It's scary to make a business. You must be scared. Create something, finish it, and then subject it to the jury. I know it sounds trite when we're dealing with these huge issues, but fear is fear to me. And then when you confront any fear that you have, it can set you free when you step out. And I give credit to all the people that the professionals that put pieces into the show, as well as people
I
of
so
all
agree.
ages. It's going to be inside. It's not the sidewalk art show anymore.
Nice.
It's, they're calling it the Munson Art Festival. Because
Oh, I see.
they elevated us
Art
to the
festival.
floor in the roof court.
Yeah.
And so we'll be in the museum where there's air conditioning. You know, be subjected to the heat, and they always take cover and uncover the work. And this year and last year, this last year was I think the first time we were inside, and everybody. I mean, it just was unanimous that this is where it belongs now after many years of being outdoors.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm looking at a photo now of your work, and just to see the detail and stuff. You know, it's a really amazing. It's kind of defies description. So we should say to people, come and see the art festival and see your work. And well, I'm sure we'll put a picture of this on our website. And thank you for articulating why art is important more than ever. I think that's what a message that we all need to hear. So
grateful for the opportunity. I love your show, and I love last week. It inspired me to keep going. She was wonderful. It's an inspiration, Ron. I'm so grateful. Thank you, and I hope to see you there.
Well, you're an inspiration too, and we will definitely see you there. So we're talking today to journalist Brendan Maslauskas Dunn. We just spoke to artist Lorraine Kreimeyer. We're going to have more of Brendan when we come back. Also, Lily Christopher found some really cool things that you can buy and try at the Hartford Farmers Market. We're going to have her story when we come back. I'm Ron Klopfanstein. You're in the hot seat on the Media Monday. We'll have more after the break.
Our community is full of vision.
This will be good. About 20 minutes. So 20 minutes of us three talking. So we get done with the feature story.
Whether it's
I'm not going to ask you any questions about the feature story because it's so well covered. This way you can go right into the topic. So when we come back from it, I'm going to introduce you. And
you invest in
then
business.
You have a question queued up right now.
Sounds good. Just give questions ready.
Yeah, just have like at least one, and then from then on we'll just swing it like we always do. Jump in whenever you want to and say whatever you want to. And just conversations.
Okay, sounds good.
Talk right up until 6
Each year, we stand beside those dedicated to making a difference.
So we'll have about a good 20 minutes. Because we're going to come back. Your story's about 5 minutes long. We can go right to
with the soda.
From the arts and education to community development and the services.
I never knew there were that many soda varieties. I went there and we saw the Pepsi, the orange soda.
I had to ask Ron about the Harry Styles reference because I'm a big fan. And I like watermelon sugar, but I connect those.
Harry Styles, I love Harry Styles. I was going to see him and then COVID hit, the show was canceled.
Did you get a chance to since?
No, then he hasn't really gone on tour close since he was only going to be outside of New York City, like the Poughkeepsie, so it was somewhat close.
Oh.
But then after that, I just haven't gotten it.
I'll have to get to see it.
Or visit ChooseExcelis.com to see if you qualify for coverage or for help in living.
Similar to
for health insurance, Medicaid, plus essential plan.
No.
Plans for New York State Health, the official health plan.
Yeah, I'll put you.
Visit NYStateHealth.gov or call 855-355-5777. Plan offerings for everyone. Health plan complies with federal civil rights laws.
So I'd like you to compare like just stuff to say.
Excelis BCBS is a independent licensee of the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association.
95.5 The Heat and For the Good Inc. are partnering with the Red Cross this summer to bring life-saving blood to patients with sickle cell disease, and we need your help. Sickle cell disease causes red cells to be hard and crescent-shaped instead of soft and round. This makes it difficult for blood to flow smoothly and carry enough oxygen to the rest of the body, which results in severe pain, organ failure, or even strokes. Blood transfusions help by replacing sickled red cells with healthy cells, and the only source for this treatment is through volunteer blood donors. Since most people with sickle cell disease are of African descent, African American or black donors are much more likely to get a close match. To put it Finally, having more black blood donors means there are more treatment opportunities for the 100,000
It's
people
okay.
living in the U.S. If you are African American or black, we ask that you join us this summer as we directly impact the lives of those with sickle cell disease. Visit uticaphoenix.net to register for our blood drive and Red Cross Blood to find a donation center near you.
Well, here, remember? With Ryan.
Summer is cooler with steward shops. As temperatures rise, chill out with steward sherbet coolers and save $1 all this week. Swell your thirst with steward shops new limited edition Dragon Juice Cooler. This legendary combo of award-winning mango dragon fruit sherbet, apple juice, and a splash of cream is bursting with tropical flavor. Every sherbet cooler is bold, creamy, and oh so satisfying. Beat the heat with sherbet coolers. On sale now through Sunday at Stewart Shops.
Oh, no, I remember that.
I mean, maybe I tripped, but I thought maybe it passed. Because it was like
See something big.
We were trying to get the air conditioning for the sound video, but it wasn't.
Experience the wonder of these prehistoric creatures. Utica Zoo Dino Discovery, presented by the Clever Group at Baird, now through October 19th, included with admission. Roar and explore at the Utica Zoo.
Stay connected with 95.5 FM on social media. On Facebook, search Utica Phoenix Radio, 95.5 FM, WUSP. On Instagram, at 955 Stream us online anytime at www.955theheat.com and www.uticaphoenix.net.
This is Ron Klopfanstein, and you're in the hot seat on a Media Monday. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Next week on the Hot Seat Media Monday, we're going to celebrate 100 years of WIVX radio with two journalists who are part of the news staff. One is our very own John Steeman, and also he was a reporter for this station, and also a longtime WIVX newsman, John Swan, for 8 years. We're talking about 100 years of I really love to do shows where we celebrate the media, the local media. 100 years, wow. For information about those upcoming shows at Hot Seat Media Monday, as well as show notes, videos, and podcasts of all our past episodes, just go to uticaphoenix.net/Media Monday. Today we're talking to journalist Brendan Maslauskas Dunn. He's going to join us in a moment. But first, there's some really cool things that you can try when you go to the Farmers Market in New Hartford. Lily Christopher has this report.
I'm Lily Christopher. I'm the Village Green of New Hartford, and I'm at the Farmers Market. And I'm here with Amanda Mitchell. So Amanda, tell me about, so what is going on today?
Today and every Wednesday we have the New Hartford Farmers Market. It's in the New Hartford Village Green. It goes from 2:30 to 6:30 every Wednesday to the end of August.
That's great. And what exactly do you do? I know you kind of brought the market back, revived it. So tell us a little bit about that. It's like you and your family.
Sure, yeah. So my dad was running it, and we simultaneously run it together. We had the shift over to the Village Green a few years ago, and it's been absolutely wonderful. It's really been a hub for the community in terms of getting local vendors together, having local music available, having the local food trucks around, and the location of the village just makes it so easily accessible to everyone in New Hartford.
Yes, and what do you like about Farmers Market?
I love the people I've met here and the customers, and they ask me a lot of questions about beekeeping and about the honey. Is it pure honey as opposed to, is there any chemicals in it? All that kind of stuff. They have a lot of questions about bees. How do we take care of our bees? And, I just love answering all the questions.
That's great.
The biggest thing is the metal spoon they've heard on the internet. Can you use a metal spoon? Yes, of course you can.
Just go with Quick Mix Soda with Amanda, and we're about to hop on the TikTok challenge of the cool soda mixes.
Yeah, so we're with Quick Mix Soda Company. I'm Amanda. This is Tammy. Tammy's our mixologist. We have a variety of things that you could do. You could try out a pre-tested recipe that we have right here and on our sign right there. We also have create your own, so you can get a different type of soda base like Sprite or Coke, Dr. Pepper, ginger ale,
and then add a flavor that you like. So if you like strawberry, you can add strawberry flavoring. You can add vanilla flavoring. We have all kinds. We also have pop rocks and candies that you can add to the soda and cream.
I know obviously a lot of Gen Z TikTok takes in person with this, but I don't think a lot of people realize in this area they could get it local. You know, they assume in big cities, big places. Do you guys just come to the market, or do you run a business or a place outside of this market?
So right now, we're doing farmers markets. So we do this one, New Hartford, and we do Whitesboro on Monday night. But we are on Instagram, we're on TikTok, and we could be available for pop-up events.
So I'm here with Olivia. Olivia, tell us what food you got.
We were just over at the Break from the Grind food truck. I got the Patty O'Hogan sandwich. So we've got a patty melt, caramelized onions, bacon, burger, all very farm to table, all very local, very fresh and delicious.
Hi, so I'm here with Angelica, and we're back. Can you tell us, so how do you make your permanent bracelets?
Okay, so the chains are different mixed metals. I have sterling silver, rose gold filled or yellow gold filled. It just kind of goes based on the person's size. So it goes, I measure them beforehand, kind of size it to their wrist. I take a jump ring, and then this is a welder. It's a stylus pen style, and all you have to do is connect the electric to it and do a little zap.
Here on the Village Green, New Hartford Farmers Market, you'll find community, culture, and connection with your local stands and your friendly customers passing through every day. I'm Lily Christopher from 95.5 Utica Phoenix, and I recommend for you all to be here next Wednesday.
Lily Christopher joins us in the studio now. Lily, you're a senior at Lemoyne, a journalism student, so you have some questions for Brendan.
Oh yes, a lot of questions. Hi Brendan.
All right, thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. So you come from living in an area like Utica, covering news in Egypt, which must be like a light year of a different world. Tell us a little bit about that. What was the most interesting thing that you covered in your time there?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's very different there, and I think all of us, it's safe to say we learn about Egypt. We learn about that ancient history, the pyramids, the Nile River, the Sphinx. So it was incredible for the first time to be, among the pharaohs and the pyramids in this ancient history. But of course, fast forward to today, Egypt's a very different place, and I think one thing that was very difficult for me to grapple with is that it is a brutal, repressive police state and military dictatorship, all right? So, and you feel it. It is overwhelming. It is suffocating. The presence of the police, of the army is absolutely everywhere. There's undercover, police officers and informants. People are afraid, really, to speak up about things publicly or even sometimes in private. This is a close ally of the United States and has been for many, many decades. It's also, Egypt is a close ally of Israel, and I think therein lies, the major issue I encountered there. I went there to accompany about 6,000 activists and people from around the world who went and met in Cairo in early to mid-June with plans to march to the border with Gaza and demand an end to the genocide. Unfortunately, that protest, which was, in the true spirit of nonviolent protests and long history of that all over the world, was violently and brutally, I would say, cut short. So I was there to witness that and there to write about that.
What did you witness?
So basically the plan was to, people were meeting in Cairo, and the plan was to drive to a location on the Sinai Peninsula, which borders Gaza and also Israel, is a very heavily militarized part of Egypt also. But to go through the different checkpoints and make it closer to the border and to meet there and then march for a few days across the desert, camp out in the desert, and just have a demonstration on the border with Gaza to demand an end to the genocide, an end to the occupation of Palestine, end to the war, and the immediate mass transfer of food and medicine and other humanitarian aid into this besieged, starving, suffocating, population. It's just every day I was there. 100 Palestinians were killed this day, and then 70 the next day. It was just brutal to be so close yet so far away. And so what happened, before people even marched, the authorities started raiding hotels. So they would go in maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, and maybe there's a hotel, they found out a number of activists from France were there. And they went in there, they raided it, they grabbed a bunch of people, and they brought them in for questioning. Some of them they deported. There are several hundred people that were deported, some right upon entering in the airport, and others, when they're picked up off the streets or they're raided in the hotel. So the day of the action, when people were going to meet and coalesce and then march, across the Sinai desert and peninsula, a number of people were stopped at one big checkpoint in particular. I made it to that checkpoint. And so there are upwards to almost 1,000 people from all over the world who were stopped there. The authorities confiscated passports of hundreds of different people.
What did the authorities say when they stopped you at a checkpoint?
Well, I wasn't, I didn't go through the checkpoint because it was already blocked. All right, they weren't letting anyone through, locals and foreigners alike. But yeah, for the other,
what's it like for somebody who encounters the authorities in a situation like that? What is it like? How do they treat you?
I mean, it was aggressive, it was intimidating, and by the end of the night it was extremely violent. And I've encountered violence in different protests, by the authorities in the U.S., in Cambodia, in different parts of the world. This is near the top of the list. So basically what happened...
And top list in terms of
violence. Yeah, the violence. And it wasn't just violence from the police. I'll mention in a moment what happened, but basically what happened, they confiscated passports of hundreds of people, and so there are nearly 1,000 people that just staged a sit-in, all right, and said, we're not moving, we want to get to Gaza. More and more police arrived, riot police arrived, encircled everyone. The police gave a warning for people to disperse and said, you're not going forward. We have buses and vans to bring you back to Cairo, but that's the only direction you're going. Some people willingly went. Most people stayed and said, no, there's a genocide going on. We have to do something to stop it. We're staying put.
And so the people that said that, were they mostly people that were, they probably weren't Egyptian nationals, I would think, right?
No, there were, yeah.
Because people that were Egyptian, like if they were to defy the authorities, they would be in real trouble, I would imagine.
Yeah, there were some Egyptians.
Not that there wasn't danger for someone like a journalist.
You're right. There's profoundly more danger for Egyptians there, and so if there are Egyptians there, and it was largely internationals, right? Because if Egyptians got caught,
because it was really brave for anybody to defy the authorities.
For sure. If Egyptians got caught, they would go to prison, and likely for a very long time, and they would likely get tortured in prison because that's what happens. So what happened next is people are doing the sit-in, they're chanting and waving Palestinian flags, and then all these men of different ages and teenage boys and young boys showed up. They're wearing more traditional clothes, like Bedouin clothes, like from the desert. And I saw them. I was on the outside of the crowd, and I saw these people approach, and I was thinking, oh, why are they here? Are they here to support or spectate? And then they started to put masks around their faces. And then I realized, okay, they're here to do something really bad. They started throwing water bottles at the demonstrators, and then the police opened them up and let these people go in and viciously beat. And I saw this happen. I witnessed it. They had cattle prods, they had clubs, they had whips, and they had pepper spray, and they started to viciously, brutally beat people. The dictatorship in Egypt has a history of doing this. They are paid, hired thugs. And basically they go into an area and they might just go into a village and find a bunch of poor people and say, hey, you know, we'll give you a little bit of money, go in and beat up these people, go up and kill these people. And so that's basically what happened to the people gathered there. I was actually grabbed by the police. I was detained. They saw me, you know, they knew I was a journalist. They saw me taking pictures and filming a woman that was being brutalized by the police. So they grabbed me. They dragged me to a van and crammed a lot of people in there. Thought we were going to suffocate.
Did they take your phone away or anything? Or did they take your phone away?
Eventually they did. They brought me into a truck, a police truck. And so I was in there with a dozen other people, different activists. They confiscated our passports and our phones. And we were in there for a few hours. Every once in a while, they'd open the door, they'd be beating some other activist and throw him inside with us. You know, the whole time I was there, I said, I'm a journalist. You know, I have luggage out there. I need to get it. Please let me out, or get my items for me. They said no. They eventually let us all go, and their goal was to get people back to Cairo. So I was one of the last people there that night, and you know, I got my luggage, but it was missing my laptop, my camera lens, and my pens and pencils. So this is something the police had. Yeah. They gave it back to me. I can't say for sure, but my suspicions are telling me that the police did it. Right.
Why do it? Why practice journalism when you're putting yourself at risk? Why is it important that people do this kind of work?
The story needs to get out, right? And especially in a crisis, in something as tragic as this ongoing genocide, and especially as an American, right? The U.S. government under Trump, of course, and started under Biden, not only is backing this genocide, but is facilitating it. I mean, the U.S. has the power to, today they could say stop, and they could, you know, do a number of different actions, stop sending weapons, and that would be the end of the genocide, right? And the U.S. government is doing the exact opposite of that. I feel obligated, especially as an American, to go there and to cover what's going on, do what I can to, you know, give voice to the voiceless, right? And to try and elevate those stories of people's movements, of protests, and of just common people. So I felt obligated.
I mean, and you have a lot of experience in covering these people's movements, democratic movements, dictatorships, and regimes. What do you think of the way that this country has changed from the time I interviewed you 1 year ago to now?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some scary parallels with what I witnessed in Egypt and, you know, with this bill that was just passed. I mean, giving so much of a war chest of funds to ICE, the Immigration Customs Enforcement Agency. I mean, this would, in effect, make this one of the largest standing armies in the world, you know, and we see, you know, and the ICE terror has been going on for a number of years, right? It's not new or unique under Republican leadership.
A couple who was terrorized right here.
Right, you covered this, right? And so, but now all bets are off, right? And they're going to schools and they're masking up. It's increasingly militarized. It's a, you know, increasingly volatile situation. So I see what
people went out the streets.
Right, absolutely. In our communities everywhere, you know, I see what ICE is doing in this country. It is very similar to what the Egyptian authorities are doing to their people. It's similar, I won't say the exact same thing, but what the Israeli authorities are doing to Palestinians.
What about in terms of the way that the Trump administration and the MAGA movement, their regard for journalism and for the profession? Like, do you see some parallels in terms of how like other world leaders feel about journalists who like tell the truth about their own countries? The way that Trump is kind of backing down on.
Yeah, I mean, it is an utter like visceral disdain of journalism, right? They fear any authoritarian leader or government is terrified of journalists because
I think that, like, you know, for some people, like those of us who live here, a lot of us, especially those of us who practice journalism, and I said before this too, like for me being a journalist who's gay and a teacher, I have like triple target on my back from these people after me. But I think that for a lot of people that live here, it's kind of like the frog in boiling water kind of thing, where it's getting worse, but it's getting worse faster now. But it's still getting worse gradually enough that I wonder, like, if you have a different perspective as someone who, you were here in July, I interviewed you in July of 2024. You were over in Egypt, you know, you've been out in the country, you've been following what's happening here, but you're back here now. I feel as if you described Egypt as like the repressive feeling of a police state. I sort of feel like some of that here. Do you see any parallels?
I see some parallels. It is not as bad here as it is in Egypt, of course.
Perhaps it feels worse
Israel.
because I'm not used to Egypt, or
Right, but there's a lot of alarming and very scary things.
What should
and changes
journalists
going on.
do? American journalists who practice journalism in America. What should we be doing or thinking about? What lessons have you learned practicing journalism under such dire and oppressive circumstances?
Be bold. I mean, I see with like this program and really giving voice to the voiceless and those real, sincere, independent, intrepid journalists across the U.S. They're doing great work, but unfortunately, the mainstream establishment, corporate media, you see with these lawsuits, right? They're just
CBS
caving,
caved.
right? You're caving instantly.
The network of Edward R. Murrow caved. I mean, that's a very distressing sign, I think, for those in business.
Yeah. And I will say, just want to circle back to what happened in Egypt. And my story will be published on Unicorn Riot in the next day or so. I'll have a few more pieces this summer. Thank you. And but although the action was repressed by the Egyptian government, people did not fulfill their goal of getting to the border of Gaza or breaking the siege. There were, actually while I was in Egypt, there was an announcement by activists in Malaysia to send a 1,000 ship flotilla across the Mediterranean of just humanitarians, activists, people from all over the world who want to join. So the call is going out all over the world to go in October, I believe, if the genocide is still going on, to break the siege of Gaza.
Why would Egypt not want you to help Gaza? Or want activists to help Gaza? I mean, I would think on the same side.
One would think, in early on after after Israel was created, the Egyptian government under Nasser was supporting the Palestinian cause. It is a little surprising to I think a number of people that one would think that the surrounding Arab states, many of them that have like massive populations of Palestinian refugees, would support Palestinians, but in fact, the opposite is true. By and large, most of these states, Egypt is a very strong ally of Israel, and Saudi Arabia is a pretty strong ally of Israel too. Jordan also. We see this across the region that the Arab governments are they're part of the problem too, and then we've seen this in Egypt, right? It's not just solely Israel. The U.S. should take a lot of the blame, but a lot of the Western countries, of course, the UK, Germany, they're supporting this genocide. But the surrounding governments too, they're doing quite the opposite of what they should do. And that's why we rely on like common people, in Malaysia, in the U.S., around the world. Like that's how we're going to make change.
I think that's a really good way to end it. We have to go out there. We have to tell the stories, and I think that we also have to, which I tell my audiences too at times, like as consumers of news, if you want to consume quality news, you have to support it by sharing it, liking it, going to our websites, podcasts, and all that kind of stuff. So thank you for sharing your story, Brendan. I also want to thank the people that I interviewed at the SNUG rally, especially those who lost a loved one. Just want you guys to know that our condolences here at the station are with you, and that we do want to tell your stories. So our guest today in the hot seat were journalist Brendan Maslauskas Dunn. I didn't have my pronunciation key here. And artist Lorraine Kreimeyer, who called in. If you'd like to hear the show again, or if you want to see the YouTube versions of those pre-recorded segments and our feature stories, we have the videos and podcasts of the show online Wednesday at unicaphoenix.net/Media Monday. Our sound engineer is Jonathan Brooks. He's DJ Jay Easy, and he's up next with the Easy Ride Home. Jim Hale records the show for YouTube and podcast. Willie Christopher is our associate producer, and Bill Conn is our entertainment correspondent. I'm Ron Klopfanstein. I'll be back next week with another Hot Seat Media Monday.